This chart shows a striking divergence in modern business. Individual AI tool adoption is climbing rapidly, but firm-level AI ROI remains completely stagnant. Workers are moving faster, but the companies they work for are not. Early on, companies treated AI as a simple tool to speed up existing tasks, a strategy known as token maxing. They bought software subscriptions, tracked token usage on a leaderboard, and assumed a faster employee would naturally equal a more profitable business. The result of this approach is a structural bottleneck called congestion. Individuals generate code, proposals, and content at machine speed, but that accelerated work piles up because the legacy management structure cannot review or approve it fast enough. Salesforce CEO Mark Benioff experienced this directly. In 2026, he openly cited a massive $300 million annual bill for AI vendors, questioning the value because he wasn't seeing the structural returns to justify the massive spend. The problem is architectural. Organizations are bolting intelligence onto legacy hierarchies. They are speeding up the execution engine while keeping human managers as the manual routing bottlenecks. We have reached what we call the organizational singularity. This is the inflection point where the operating logic of the traditional firm breaks down entirely and must be rewritten. Treating AI as faster software yields diminishing returns. To survive, the firm must be rebuilt as an AI-native entity. In 1937, economist Ronald Coase asked a simple question: why do firms exist? Why don't independent contractors just trade with each other on the open market? This diagram maps Coase's answer. Open markets carry friction. Those jagged red lines represent the high costs of searching, negotiating, and enforcing contracts. The firm was invented as an umbrella to bypass that friction, replacing the chaos of the open market with orderly blue hierarchy pathways. Agentic AI collapses those exact transaction costs. Search, negotiation, and information routing can now be executed by intelligence systems in milliseconds. A 2026 mathematical proof by researcher Harong Ju confirms this. Analyzing 65 standard enterprise workflows, he found that 74% are monotonic, meaning they provably require absolutely no human coordination to execute correctly. If the vast majority of our work can now be performed without a manager or a status meeting, the economic logic that forced people into corporate hierarchies for the last 90 years begins to dissolve. Even when a machine handles every step of a transaction, a technical capability is not the same thing as a legal responsibility. An algorithm can execute a contract, but it cannot be sued for breaching one. This creates the fiduciary wedge, the gap between what an AI can technically execute and what a human must be legally accountable for. The firm persists primarily as an accountability shell, a legal liability container and fiduciary responsibility holder that stands behind the machine's actions. A hierarchy built to coordinate work is now obsolete. The new firm structure must be built exclusively to govern accountability. What replaces the traditional human org chart is an operating system we call the intelligence stack. Its function is to operationalize military strategist John Boyd's famous OODA loop: observe, orient, decide, and act, and run it continuously at machine speed. This diagram illustrates the 6 cognitive layers. It begins with purpose and sense, to frame intent and gather data. It moves to interpret and decide, to build context and make choices. Finally, it reaches orchestrate and learn, to execute actions and evaluate outcomes. The learn layer is the compounding engine. Every operational decision trace is evaluated and fed directly back into the system, allowing the agents to recursively improve their own workflows in the very next cycle. But running an intelligence engine at this velocity, without structural constraints, carries catastrophic risk. We saw this clearly when an autonomous Amazon Q agent caused a massive AWS outage, or when the Pocket OS coding agent was granted blanket privileges. Without strict permission boundaries, autonomous agents deleted live production environments and months of backups in a matter of seconds. Every execution cycle must operate strictly inside a cross-cutting control plane called Govern Assure. This plane relies on 4 pillars: trusted evals to catch silent drift, searchable logs to trace every decision, granular rollback to revert mistakes, and a human review queue for any decision touching money, legal text, or customers. The intelligence stack creates competitive speed.
The Govern Assure control plane ensures that speed does not destroy the corporate balance sheet. Even with the best agents and strict governance, the intelligent stack will starve if its data remains locked inside legacy applications. This diagram shows the failure pattern of modern enterprise AI. It illustrates an architecture where a massive ERP system acts as a vault, holding the data hostage. AI is bolted on top, forced to pull context through thin, fragile, and complex integrations. Fixing this requires a structural overhaul known as the data plane inversion. The ERP must be demoted from the gravitational center of the business to just one of many swappable workflow modules. Underneath, an independent, open data lake becomes the foundation, giving AI a short, direct line to the exact information it needs. The standard objection from enterprise architects is that pulling data out of the ERP strips away its business logic. A raw row of data lacks the compliance rules and historical context that give it meaning. That meaning must travel with the data. Every object in the lake carries embedded metadata answering 6 governance questions, like who issued it and what the legal terms are, paired with a durable decision trace of how it was used in the past. Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella put it bluntly. He warned that companies cannot rely solely on renting foundation models. They must own their proprietary learning loops. Whoever controls the independent data layer controls the firm's compounding intelligence, rendering the transaction engine secondary. This chart represents the traditional human workforce, a 3-tier pyramid composed of the C-suite, middle management, and the coalface. Historically, humans sat squarely inside the pathways between these tiers, acting as manual routing bottlenecks. AI rewrites all 3 layers. At the top, agents absorb information synthesis and strategy drafting. Executives shift out of the critical path to focus on what machines cannot do, holding the company's purpose, setting risk appetite, and allocating capital. The middle layer faces the most disruption. When agents handle reporting, task routing, and workflow handoffs, 80 to 90% of historic coordination work simply vanishes. Block co-founder Jack Dorsey executed this shift in early 2026, stripping out the permanent middle management relay entirely. The corporate structure transitioned to horizontal contributors and transient project leaders, using an integrated world model to route cross-functional context. The managers who survive this transition become exception architects. Instead of policing schedules, they mentor talent, build trust, and resolve highly ambiguous edge cases that fall outside trained patterns. At the coalface, frontline workers stop executing repetitive tasks. They step back to become agentic operators, supervising system behavior, handling complex customer relationships, and feeding real-world edge cases back into the learning loop. This creates a severe talent risk. Automating entry-level work destroys the apprenticeship pipeline. You cannot produce a senior executive with deep judgment if there are no junior roles left to learn the business in the first place. Companies must fund a structural bridge curriculum, rotating workers through the AI stack and pairing humans with elicitation agents. Without this investment, the firm fractures into an elite caste of AI superusers and a massive class of displaced, alienated workers. Across all layers, the mandate is identical. Human capital must migrate off the critical execution path and onto the exception, trust, and validation path. These 3 elements construct the firm of the future: an inverted, decoupled data substrate, the high-speed intelligence stack running the execution loop, all sealed by a protective dome of human governance and fiduciary accountability. This architecture centers the human role on the specific tasks where biological cognition remains irreplaceable: judgment under ambiguity, deep ethical reasoning, and relationship trust. The entire workforce must transition from gatekeepers, who manually approve every sequential step, into validators, who design the constraints, audit the system outcomes, and intervene when reality breaks the rules. The timeline for this transition is not 5 years. It is happening now. Organizations must decouple their data layer and stand up a minimal viable intelligence stack immediately. Failing to deliberately rewrite your organizational architecture guarantees one outcome: your firm will be systematically outcycled by competitors operating at machine speed.